Good afternoon. This is a TestFest, so the first test is for you now to switch over to English, unfortunately. Apologies for that. I do speak two other languages, Irish and Dutch. Pretty useless here, unfortunately, I think, today. But however. Okay, so my name is Rory O'Donnell, and this is the general slide we have to put up for all of these things before we lead you astray. Okay, so there you go. So a little bit about me. I've been working in quality at Oracle & Son for some 17 years now. You'd think I'd have got sense at this stage, but anyway. I'm located in Dublin, Ireland, hence the peculiar accent. I originally worked on Solaris x86 device drivers, believe it or not, for my sins, and then moved on to Java, got sense at long last. Working on update releases since 1.1.8, a long time ago. But more recently, I've changed over to working with OpenJDK and working a lot with IBM in the OpenJDK environment, and that's proven to be very interesting. One of the things I find with OpenJDK is that things kind of take a long time to actually happen. But you know, you set out to do something and you make sure it happens, and it does. It actually gets there. So one of the big challenges we had starting off was we wanted to run the open tests that are available for everybody here to actually execute in the open, tested with our JDK early access, JDK 8 early access builds, and then post those results online so you guys could do the similar procedure and compare your results and make sure you get the same results as we do. So we do this and we post the results every single week for you. So we're now at build 101 or 102 is out there. Okay. I've also been working with IBM on Java 1 presentations. I worked with IBM on the presentations, and then Shura gave the presentation. So that's always a good one. In March of this year, we had the first TestFest. This was in London, and we had about 25 people at it, so roughly the same numbers as here. And we worked with the London Jugs over there to actually set this up, and it was a great success. Everybody that was at it was really delighted that we did it and wanted more. So one of the things we did was we actually took all of the presentations. We took all of the presentations that were given there and we put them on the Oracle YouTube Java channel. So they're all there available for you to go and look at them at your leisure. The other thing I do is I work with these London Jug guys on a regular basis, and they're actually very actively now testing JDK 8, and towards the end of this presentation, I'll talk to you about the milestone that we're currently in for JDK 8 and why it is very important right now to actually do as much testing as possible. Okay, that's enough about me. Okay, so what is the OpenJDK that we're here talking about today? Well, basically we're talking about the open source implementation of Java Platform Standard Edition. Okay? No surprises there, I hope. Okay, so we have a community out there. We have some 350 developers. This is an old number. I don't know if I'm sure it's probably around 400 or 500 now at this stage. 80 of these are not employed by Oracle. So that's and they are actually employed around 30 different projects. So it's a good, honest community. We did a survey of the OpenJDK mailing list to see, you know, where was all the traffic coming from and are people actively involved. And what we were delighted to see was that, you know, something like 40% of the traffic was actually coming from non-Oracle employees, which really shows us that this is a success. People are engaging with us and are keeping engaged with us, and people are voicing their concerns and, you know, acting like a normal community. The other thing is that we can see from this is that we're not getting one-time contributors. So somebody does something and then says, oh, well, that was that, so I'll go off and do something else. They're actually repeating and coming back and are getting more and more involved and getting more and more challenged, and hence moving up the roles. If I'm talking too fast, please somebody tell me, you know, okay? All right. So within our community, we actually have to have a set of bylaws. Now, this is the boring stuff. This stuff is what you read when you can't sleep at night. Okay, but it defines the structure and the workings of OpenJDK community. They were ratified in 2011 in June and actually installed in October of 2011. If you want to look at, for example, stuff like a census of the people that are actually involved, and this lists both the groups and the projects that are there, go to that page, the census page, and it'll look something like this. So we've got all these groups on top with all the usual suspects of, 2D, AWT, qualities in there, serviceability, you name it. All of the good guys are in there. And then we have the projects. And I'm sure you'll recognize plenty there, JDK 7 updates and JDK 8. People, of course, I stopped after so many because I couldn't list them all on here. But that just gives you a flavor of what's on the census site if you want to go there and have a look. Okay, so we have this big community. Within the community, we have groups. And within groups, we have projects. So there are different roles then within these various different sections of the community, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next coming slides. Okay, so a group, well, it can be composed of, it can be proposed by OpenJDK members, but they are added and removed by the governing board rather. So a group is a set of participants who engage in an open conversation about a common interest. That makes sense. I mean, they're talking about a specific thing that they're interested in. Groups will have web content and mailing lists where you can subscribe, and you can subscribe to as many of these mailing lists as you want. Now, the one thing to remember is there are no code repositories in the actual groups. That's for the actual projects themselves. That's where all the code is. And groups may, of course, sponsor projects. Okay, we also have this concept of 2 permanent groups that are defined in the bylaws. So the OpenJDK members group, and these guys can vote on new projects, nominate group leads, vote on the at-large governing board members. The OpenJDK governing board then is the one that these guys manage the structure and the overall operation of the community and sort of make sure that we all adhere to the bylaws. It comprises of 5 individuals. 2 of them are from Oracle, 1 from IBM, and 2 at-large members. And these guys are elected by the OpenJDK members annually. So sponsors projects for new releases. That's what the governing board does. And you may have observers invited into these governing board meetings from time to time, but they will not have any voting rights. Okay, projects. What's a project? Well, as I mentioned, these are guys who are talking about a specific artifact. So code, documentation is all in there. They have web content, and of course they will have mailing lists and code repositories. Now they're usually time bound, so by that I mean, say JDK 7 updates is a project that will end at some stage. So Lambda will end at some stage. So these projects are within a period of time. It's not defined when they start out that they're going to end at a particular time. It just so happens that it comes to the end and they say, okay, we're done. Okay. Now then, roles. Okay. So, Shura has given you a big chunk of my information here already, so that makes it a little bit easier. That's great, thank you. Okay, so we start off as a participant, and that's somebody who actually is reading all the mailing lists, contributing, making suggestions and stuff like that, but is a really pretty much almost a backseat job. You're just reading stuff. Now, having signed this wonderful OCA, the Oracle Contributor Agreement, as Shura has mentioned, you now can actually start to submit patches, propose projects, and participate in groups and projects. Okay, you then can move to the steady heights of OpenJDK member. So an OpenJDK member is someone that's being nominated and elected by votes of existing members. So it's a contributor who actually has been nominated by other OpenJDK members. And within that environment, you can propose new groups and may even grow to lead a group. Okay. You also have the possibility to vote on new OpenJDK members and vote on the at-large members of the governing board. Okay, so this is giving you the same information pretty much, a participant as we mentioned already. The thing about the Oracle contributor license as well that we should point out is that if you work for a company and that company has signed the OCA, then there's no need for you to you are covered as part of that agreement, okay? So within Oracle, Oracle has obviously signed it, so we're all covered within it. IBM people, they've signed it, so all the people within IBM have the rights as well. It's important to note though that if you actually change employment and move to another job, you are no longer covered by that agreement, so you need to resubmit your OCA. Okay. Okay, now an OpenJDK member, this thing does expire after 1 year. You can just send a mail and say, yes, I still want to stay a member, but you need to actually do that. It will expire. You can, I think we mentioned these already, propose new groups and projects, lead a group, and vote at the at-large members of the governing board. Now, then there's this OpenJDK lead. There is only one OpenJDK lead, and that is Mark Reinhold. He's appointed by Oracle, and he leads the JDK release projects. He's also a member of the governing board. Okay, groups. So, a group member is elected by other group members, may nominate other contributors to be elected as a group member, and has right access to the web content. Quite useful. Okay, a group lead then. Well, this guy gets added responsibility. He's approved or elected by these guys within the members of the group and is ratified by the governing board. He's responsible for directing and coordinating the activities and has authority to sponsor projects. That's quite useful, as you can imagine. But he's obligated then to act as a contact group or contact person for that group and should deliver quarterly reports. Okay? Okay, that's exactly the same stuff again. Nothing new there. Okay, now within a project then. Now an author, so you can actually nominate yourself to a project lead and say, hey, I want to be an author in this project. And assuming he comes back to you and does the necessary, you get accepted into that. You may create change sets, but you may not push them. That's the author's restriction. A committer, on the other hand, he has to be nominated and approved by other committers within this project and may create and push the change sets that the author has created. Now I'm going to go through a slight example at some stage during these slides to show you what steps actually happen. Hopefully that will make it a little bit clearer if this is not 100% just yet. Okay, and he of course can vote on any new committers being promoted from author. The project lead then, well, he has pretty much all the stuff as a committer has, and but he has the approval or the right to appoint and remove authors from a project, and he acts as the contact for the project and must, of course, publish quarterly reports. Okay, now the other thing is the project leaders are also reviewers, and they keep their reviewer role even if they relinquish the actual project leadership role. Okay? A reviewer then, so an experienced committer is nominated and elected by other reviewers in the project. The role only exists in projects where the project lead has designated an actual reviewer role is required. That's not always the case, so that could change depending on the individual project. Okay, so the reviewer then is someone who actually reviews and approves the change sets that have gone through the author to the committer and then through the reviewer. Okay, right. These two we've already pretty much mentioned. What you see here is an author should have made 2 sponsored contributions to the project ahead of actually asking the project lead to grant that person the author right. Okay, he may create change sets, but he may not push them directly. Now, a committer then is a contributor who is nominated by and elected by other committers, has about 8 significant changes required for a nomination. Now, significant is a word that's, it's hard to define, but if you have any doubts, then you can always go to project leads and say, or somebody that's sponsoring you and say, hey, I've done these. Is this enough for me to actually go and ask for the possibility of getting a committer role? Because 8 one-line changes is not going to get you a committer role, that's for sure. Okay. Now, the committer, of course, may create and push changes and vote on new committers. Okay, so you want to become an author. You send a mail to the project lead and you request the author's role. If you don't know who the actual the person to send it is, go and look at the OpenJDK census, and there you'll find the guys listed there under projects. Okay. Now, if he accepts it, you will receive an OpenJDK registration invitation mail. So you complete the invitation, your username is assigned, and you should be able to use that then in all future Mercurial change sets. Okay. So a reviewer then. So we've gone from looking at authors to committers. Now we're looking at a reviewer. We're talking about 32 significant commits to a project to be considered for a reviewer role. The role only required if projects where the project lead has actually defined that this is required. And any reviewer may review and approve change sets. Okay. Now the project lead then, he's pretty much got full authority over all the technical matters related to this project, and including when to require formal change reviews. He has the authority to appoint and remove authors, as we already mentioned, and the obligation to act as the point of contact, and also to publish quarterly reports. How does that look? Okay. Okay. I think this one is a little bit easier to actually see the progress as we go through. Okay, so you're a participant, you've been subscribed to several mailing lists, you post messages, you've had lots of conversations, people know your name, and you've submitted simple patches to people who have gone and done things with them. You now sign the OCA. Great. As long as everything's okay and Donald Smith comes back to you within 2 weeks, is supposed to be the number of days or weeks that he promises to be back to you with, you get your contributor role. Now you can actually submit large patches, right? Okay, you've asked you've asked the project lead, can you actually become an author within a specific project? And he's come back to you and said very kindly, yes, you can. So what can you do? You can now create change sets. Okay. If you want to actually get those change sets committed, you have to go to a project committer, right? If you notice on the side here, you can see the various things that allow you to go from participant to contributor, assign the OCA. From contributor to project author, you've got appointed by the project lead. To go from project author to committer, there's a lazy consensus of committers. I'm going to talk about the votes and what each of these different terms mean in a couple of slides, so bear with me for just now. But obviously, the project committer can actually push change sets. Now, a contributor may want to become a group member, and again, we have another lazy consensus vote to enable that person to become a group member. Once you become a group member, you can edit web content. Okay. If you want to go from a committer to an OpenJDK member, well, you have to, again, there's another vote by the OpenJDK members to actually allow you get in there. Okay, once you're in there, then you can vote on new projects and on OpenJDK members and the at-large governing body seats. Okay. Then if you want to go and you're a martyr for punishment at this stage and you want to become a group lead, well, you've got this possibility to go there and coordinate activities, sponsor projects, publish reports, and look after everything in general. Okay. The project committer can also go to be a project lead. And again, we have a different, we have a unanimous consent of sponsoring group leads voting on that one. Now, I think I'll switch back. Has anybody got any questions, guys? I'm talking here for ages. If anybody has any questions, just please interrupt me at any stage. Okay, I'm just going to change back. So hopefully that helps give you an idea of the different roles within our community. Now, I mentioned voting. So all of this, when voting is required, are all listed in our bylaws. And the voting method is based on the role or action being voted on. The voting period is usually a 2-week period, so you'll see going to, on any of the mailing lists, an email that says, you know, your vote is required within the next 2 weeks, and it'll tell you when the end date is. A voter may change their votes during the voting period. That's perfectly acceptable. And if you are the one that's nominating somebody, be prepared to get questions from people asking you, well, why is this, or, you know, what's the reason for doing a particular thing? Now, except for some governing board actions, all of the rest of the votes are actually transparent and they're out there on the mailing list, and you'll see them, they fill up your inbox basically with this stuff. But it's good, it's all good, and it's very open and transparent. Okay, so the two kinds of consensus votes, the lazy consensus, that means there are no vetoes, right? 3-vote consensus, no vetoes, at least 3 yes votes, or unanimity if only 1 or 2 votes cast, right? For example, if we're electing a reviewer to a project. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the participation, and you're seeing us mention the, you know, how to, you know, if you want to find out all about contributing, there's a openjdk.java.net/contribute. It's all there in gory detail, and read all about it. Obviously, the first place you start is with the OCA. You scan it in and email the results, and allow at least 2 weeks for processing of that email. Now, so you've got the OCA now. What are you going to do? Okay, so first thing I would suggest is you find something interesting that matches your skills, that you feel confident that, hey, this is something I can do, and I want to, you know, get involved there. But I would also sort of suggest that before you really invest a significant amount of your own time in something, discuss it with some people on the mailing list so that you don't go off and start doing something and then find, oh, well, they've done that, or it's, we're not interested in you doing that at all. So it's a lot better to, get on the mailing lists, and people are very, very receptible to new people coming on as well. I came on as a new person. Nobody ever shot me down. It's great. People are very friendly on there. Okay. So you have this wonderful patch now. You've decided on an area you're interested in. You've discussed it with somebody, and people say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So your patch must be built and tested on all the relevant platforms before submission. Now, I suppose I should backtrack a little bit here. I know Shure is going to help you guys with actually pre-reviewing this stuff before you actually go on this, so that will certainly help you a lot on that. Here we're assuming you've gone through all of the pre-reviews and all that sort of stuff, and you're pretty happy that this particular patch is of good quality, and you feel happy delivering. Okay, so how do you do it? Well, you send it by email. And it must, and I'm talking now about an actual JDK patch rather than a test in this particular instance. So obviously you're going to have to provide a description of the change itself, provide the code, and a unit test. So you're already going to get used to writing the unit test here today, so that's great. So that'll help you when you go on and start to write code changes. Work with a sponsor, so feel free to contact the leads and ask them, is there somebody that you could work with? And once the contribution passes the review and build and test processes, your contributor, the name and your email will be listed in the actual change set as contributed by, which is a real feather in your cap for sure. I guess one of the things though that we should be aware of is the goal for us is not to take in hundreds of thousands of patches coming in here. What we want to do is to select the highest quality of contributions, and I'm sure that's what we're going to get here today. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about where we are at the moment in the JDK 8 milestones. We're currently down here at the M8 all tests run. What that means is that we've set aside this particular period of time. Up to now we've been testing and various builds every week. We've now got a 10 to 12 week period where we run every single test we have on every single platform known to man, and all the various combinations and what have you. Now, I don't want to confuse you by saying that that's the only thing that happens here at that particular M8. There's a lot more other things going on besides, but for the benefit of this conversation here, it's really a great time for you guys if you've got particular things that you run and you've used in the past and it has tripped over on you, and now would be a great time to actually find bugs in the JDK. It really would. So I would encourage you, if you have environments that you'd like to try out with it, please do. The early access builds are all there available online. You can download them and play around with them. No problems at all. All right. Okay, so other things, well, where can you find the mailing lists? They're all on that list there. Very easy to subscribe. Just go on there, add in your email, and away you go. I mentioned to you already where the early access builds are on the jdk.java.net, and that's where you can download the early access builds. And the test results that we provide every week are down there on that site as well. The London Jugs have an Adopt OpenJDK website where they're actually running lots of tests. They've contributed something like 15 bugs in the last couple of weeks, where they have been running with all the various people that are members of the Jugs. They've been testing different applications that they have, and they've given us 15 bugs. That's great. That's what we want to hear. Now's the time to do it. It's been very quiet so far, so I hope you've understood what I've been talking about, and I hope it's been useful. So, any questions?